Do saxophone ligatures matter? Yes, they do, and more than you might think. In this video, I'm going to talk about my experiences with ligatures, the pros and cons of my 3 favorite ligatures, and how you can find the perfect ligature for yourself. But why does the saxophone ligature matter? Well, if you think about it, the sound of the saxophone comes from the reed vibrating. And I once heard a saxophone technician saying that the closer a part of the saxophone is to the source of the sound, so the reed vibrating, the more it has an impact. And since the ligature is responsible for holding the reed in its place when it's vibrating, you can tweak your sound quite a bit by changing your ligature. So let's take a look at 3 of my favorite ligatures. The first ligature I want to show you is the Francois Louis Pure Brass ligature. Let's do a quick playing test comparing it to my standard Selmer ligature. In my experience, this ligature makes the sound most of all more direct. It also gives a little bit of stability and makes your sound slightly darker. Because of the added stability, it can help a bit with playing the altissimo range. The handling of this ligature is very easy and it doesn't move when I have to change the position of my mouthpiece. One downside is that the metal plate that holds the reed can easily scratch the table of your mouthpiece. One of the biggest downsides for me is that there's no satisfying solution for mouthpiece cap. There is a really small cap, but it's not very handy and it would be much nicer if you could just use a standard size cap. Also, as I mentioned, the ligature gives you a little bit more stability in your tone, but this also comes at the cost of losing a bit of flexibility. The second ligature I want to show you is the Borgani Flexitone ligature. This one I've played for quite a number of years. Let's listen to a comparison. The most famous saxophone player playing this new Borgani model is probably Joe Lovano. This ligature is really unique. It doesn't have a screw, but instead you have to adjust it like this to fit your mouthpiece. It is lightweight and therefore doesn't really make your sound darker. I found that it gives you a lot of flexibility and also it makes your sound rather a little bit more indirect. When tuning, the reed stays in place and you can also use a standard size mouthpiece cap, which is very nice. The third ligature is the Selmer SM ligature, which costs only around 30 euros. I find it to not interfere with your sound at all. It's very lightweight and it lets the reed vibrate very freely. Let's listen to a comparison. You can use a regular cap for this ligature, which is a really big plus. The only downside is that when you're tuning, it tends to lose its position and get loose. Okay guys, these were my favorite 3 ligatures that I all used for a very long time. There are endless ligatures out there, and as I promised you, now I'm gonna tell you how you can find the perfect ligature for yourself. In my eyes, the task of the ligature is to make up for the weaknesses of your mouthpiece. For example, I had a vintage Selmer Soloist mouthpiece that lacked a little bit of directness, and that's why I combined it with a Francois Louis ligature, and together it led to the sound I was looking for. Then again, if I have a mouthpiece that is already very direct, I wouldn't use the Francois Louis, but instead maybe the Borgani Flexitone ligature. For yourself, you should think about what you're missing from your mouthpiece. If you, for example, want to darken your sound, you should look for a ligature that is rather heavy. Also, the material matters a lot, so the brass ligature sounds brighter usually than a leather ligature or a wooden ligature. And if you, for example, want to have more control, you might want to try a Francois Louis ligature, or if you want to have it a little bit more open, more flexible, you might want to try something like the Borgani Flexitone ligature. Now, if you take a look at my setup, you will see that I use a very simple Selmer ligature and none of the fancy ones you can buy these days, and also none of the ones that I tested before. And the reason I ended up with this ligature is pretty simple. First of all, I really like the sound of my mouthpiece and I don't want my ligature to interfere with this. And I found that the Selmer ligature is quite lightweight, so it doesn't make the sound darker, and it also lets the reed vibrate freely. And secondly, I just really like the look of it, also knowing that it's vintage, probably from the 60s, so from the same time as my mouthpiece and also my saxophone. It feels like a really nice fit. I'm also a really huge fan of Joe Henderson, who played the same setup, so I feel like I have a little bit of more connection to him when I also play this ligature. Okay guys, that's it what I had to say about ligatures. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. I would be also really curious to hear what kind of ligatures you're using. Thanks for watching. If you want to support me, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel, and see you next time.